a very slippery path for our country, and especially given the fact that we are already reeling under a great weight of debt. I talked about fuel levy. Whatever I said stands, that whatever government did through the National Treasury, the Ministry of Transport through KRB, remains illegal, and it remains a scandal that will unravel in this country pretty soon.
Was once the darling of Kenya Kwanza, but now he is a thorn in its side. Ndindi Nyoro, the firebrand MP from Kiharu in Murang'a, is no longer just making noise, he is actually making waves. I mean, from defending free education to calling out reckless borrowing to continuously criticizing Kenya Kwanza government, could this be the man Mount Kenya is actually grooming and molding to be the next Kibaki? Anyway, before we even dive deep into that, welcome back to another episode of WeeKenyans, where we bring you the resilient voices of Kenyans trying to fight for a very integral leadership and governance in Kenya. Before we even proceed, I would love you to take 3 seconds of this video to just hit on that subscribe button and also hit on that notification bar so that anytime we do a video, you're able to be notified in time. For my returning viewers, thank you very much, and we really appreciate the support so far. I believe that the videos have been bringing more insights to you. Anyways, let's get back to Ndindi Nyoro, because this is our topic today. Nyoro was once considered President Ruto's closest economic lieutenant. I mean, he was even made the chair of the powerful Budget and Appropriation Committee. Ndindi was actually the man entrusted with Kenya's financial planning. But currently, things have changed and they've taken a very different direction. And we know the problem started when he abstained from the controversial Gachagua impeachment back in 2024. This called for highly criticism, especially from those who are supporting the government, and now he has found himself on the sidelines. Actually, as we currently speak, he is no longer the chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee, because this has deeply changed and he has been taken to another committee.
Diaspora Affairs and Migrant Workers Committee, the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro CBS MP, to replace the Honorable Sankaire Lea Sopiato MP. Budget and Appropriations Committee, the Honorable Dr. Mugo Edwin Gishuki MP, to replace the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro CBS MP. Committee on Powers and Privileges, the Honorable Maina Jen Njeri MP, to replace the Honorable Bwire John Okano MP.
Even with the new changes, I mean, him being stripped of his previous committee, he isn't backing down, because when CS Badi actually said that the government is broke and couldn't afford the free education anymore, it was Nyoro that actually came out so strongly and fired back fast. It wasn't the usual politicians that we've known, kind of Raila, Kalonzo, or the other people from Wamunyoro and other members of opposition. It was Ndindi Nyoro that came out so strongly to oppose the government, idea of reducing the capitation. He actually said that education is actually a constitutional right, and everyone knows that education is a constitutional right. I don't know why Kenya Kwanza government has been trying to, for a long time, sabotage our education system. He urged the Kenya Kwanza government to make the budget adjustment instead of doing away with the capitation or reducing the capitation, and he demanded the government gave them a very good idea that they could actually cut the luxury spending instead of them reducing the capitation fee.
All of us as leaders, as parents, we have found it very, very disappointing that the free basic education that came in Kenya during the reign of President Mwai Kibaki is now being annihilated by those who are in power now. And I want to address them specifically as an MP for Kiharu. Education is the equalizer for all the households in Kenya. It is education ambayo Mungu ametumia that wengi wetu hata mimi nikiwa mbele yenu tumefika kwenye tuko. And we cannot allow that advantage we had to be discarded by those who do not know its worth. Free basic education is a right for every school-going child in Kenya. It is not a privilege from any benefactor. It is a right. And it is education that polishes human capital, adds value to human beings and labor force, and helps the economies to grow. Indeed, even in many economic models, because that is my background, education and accumulation of knowledge is one of the factors that catapult economies forward. And therefore, for no avoidance of doubt, we are not going to allow anyone to play around with free basic education. It is appalling to see people in the same government giving different conflicting statements around the same subject. Even if you wanted to lie to Kenyans, you would have called for a meeting to harmonize the lie, so that when you come out, give Kenyans the proper picture. We hear the minister for this talking about this, the minister for the other differently, the other minister for the other differently. You need to give Kenyans hope and a cohesive messaging. And what we are asking is this: 22,000 as capitation is not a figure that came from the air and fell in schools. It was out of analysis done on the issues that capitation supports in a school. And therefore, we must not be discussing about whether to go down from 22,000. The discussion should be, since when 22,000 came about as capitation, there has been inflation. We should be talking about increasing capitation from 22,000 upwards. Capitation for primary schools is the same figure that President Mwai Kibaki was giving decades ago. Yet there has been inflation. There has been changes in pricing. The discussion in the country should not be about whether to do away with it. It should be about how much money are we adding to capitation in primary schools, in JS and senior secondary schools. And I want to request those who are in power now, when you are in government, you do not promise, you do. When you have authority from Kenyans, your work is to do. Your work is to say, we are going to do. Because I saw now, after realizing the Kenyan parents are very angry, now the government is trying to come and absolve themselves. And they're saying they support free basic education. Then what you are telling you is this: don't tell us, just set the money. And at it, ile pesa ambayo, most of these principles, let me tell you parents, they run these schools like insurance companies. Ile unachukua policy ya huyu, unalipa yule. Majority of the schools in Kenya, and I'm saying so because I have interacted with many principals, and especially because of Kiharu Masomobora, have many debts owing to unremitted capitation that the government has not sent to the schools for the last several periods. Tunawauliza kwa heshima, shule zimeweka budget yao wakitumia 22,000. Tafadhali, even the arrears that are there, pay the schools so that the schools can pay the suppliers. Principals wetu waache kujificha wakitoka shule. Na ya mwisho, when I'm here, I'm talking about President Kibaki's time, because it is the government, the executive, that shapes policy. You know, now I have seen now the usual circus of blame games. Oh, it's this, it's that, it's the other. When we talk about free basic education, we talk about the government then. So the government cannot shift blame to any other institution. It is the government that shapes policy. It is the government that does allocations. Practically speaking, I have been there, I know. When the budgets are made, Parliament is only a conveyor belt. The buck stops with the executive. Please, reorganize your budget, remove money from those areas. Remove areas from those many areas, including endless renovations, including confidential funds. Remove the money for political management, like the one we are seeing people spending every weekend. Direct that money to capitation of support of our education. And please don't shift blame. Just do what is right because you know what is right. Just put money there. Kenyans are not interested in blame games, in shenanigans. Kenyans are just interested in the children of Kenya getting quality education.
Well, it hasn't been just about education because Ndindi didn't just stop there. He has also taken on the other dimension, especially for the Kenya Kwanza government and how they've been handling projects and the overborrowing that they've been making, and saying that the government currently is at the book of death when it comes to now borrowing. And now they're coming up with new terms on how they can, increase their borrowing and trying to hoodwink, the taxpayers. And he actually gave a very good scenario of the Talanta project, warning that it would cost taxpayers money over 100 billion Kenya shillings. This is money that could be spent on classroom, on healthcare, or bringing other forms of development that could impact the livelihood of Kenyans. I mean, I just want us to listen to this powerful speech and how Ndindi Nyoro, he's an economist, and how he was able to break it down for the public to understand what is actually going on with borrowing and the games that Kenya Kwanza is trying to play.
A very slippery path for our country, and especially given the fact that we are already reeling under a great weight of debt. Just for background's sake, the Kenyan debt currently is going to 12 trillion Kenya shillings, meaning for the last 2.5 years we are borrowing more than 1 trillion shillings. In fact, if you check at the amount of money that was borrowed last financial year up to end of last month, the government borrowed more money than had been approved by Parliament, and especially in the domestic side of the debt. And therefore, there is an imminent problem that we are under debt distress as a country, and therefore the limitation of the physical space. But even having said that, we have now seen a new cleverness being implemented by the National Treasury and the government in a bid to run away from the spiraling debt that is now endangering our economy. And there is a new term now in Kenya called securitization. And I want to call upon all of us, when you hear a big name, and especially from government, a big Kizungu name, always pay some attention, because that is usually a way of diverting attention from Kenyans. So securitization has been one of those terms, meaning we are now targeting revenues of government and mortgaging them. I talked about fuel levy. Whatever I said starts, that whatever government did through the National Treasury, the Ministry of Transport through KRB, remains illegal. And it remains a scandal that will unravel in this country pretty soon. Because the essence of it and all the characteristics are characteristics of a scandal, not anchored in any law, and of course, that has all the characteristics of profligate borrowing, which is not reflecting anywhere in the government books. Kenyans must have seen that the entire government today was in the Nairobi Securities Exchange floor, ringing the bell for the starting of the secondary trading of what is being called Talanta Infrastructure Fund. It is a 44.8 billion Kenya shillings board. Board, in other terms, is borrowing. When government borrows, it can do treasury bills, it can do bonds, which are either short-term or long-term. Now, since on the side of the book that we already know for government debt is already overstretched, now the government is coming up with these kind of facilities so that we do not seem like our debt is growing, whereas we are basically having another secret book of debt. One secret book was fuel levy. The second secret book, of course, is now this one for Talanta, at the behest of, or under the auspices of the sports fund. What is it? The Kenyan government is borrowing today, or has already borrowed, 44.8 billion Kenya shillings. That money is money to be spent today, but to be paid by Kenyans through taxes, and especially around betting and gambling, for the next 15 years, because most of the taxes or the revenue for the sports fund come from those two kind of areas. So we are spending revenue for the next 15 years today, so that we get political capital out of it today. But Kenyans will pay that loan for the next 15 years. It will be maturing in 2040. Now the interest rate is 15.04%. Those things seem just figures when you see them, but they affect every Kenyan. Because at that rate of 15.04%, it means boards that are paid semi-annually after every 6 months, the government will be paying from the sports fund around 3.4 billion Kenya shillings after every 6 months. So at the maturity of the board in the next 15 years, Kenya will have paid interest rate of 100 billion for a loan of 44.8 billion Kenya shillings. And I'm here wondering, if that cannot make us angry as Kenyans, then what would? Because we are basically mortgaging every stream of government revenue, like Kenya is going anywhere. Kenya will still need a sports fund for the next 15 years. What is the urgency of rushing to overburden the country with a 44 billion loan, which upon maturity will be paying more than double on interest rate alone? The other thing that is important in that kind of board is that when it was floated and the public was to participate, if you look at the register of those people who ended up buying in the primary issuance, is that the government realized that the mainstream private sector investors were not interested, because they would ask very direct questions. Questions like, is it sovereign guaranteed, which is no? What if there is a law change in terms of the sports fund in the next 15 years? What if the tendencies of collection of revenues change? Because there were no answers for those questions, the government forced NSSF to invest workers' pension money in this board. And if you look at the investors of this board, you will see the leading in the pack is NSSF. It will be important for leaders. We want to achieve many things and everyone wants progress for our country. But what does it benefit the leadership to overburden a country and to put a country into this kind of a slippery path, only for us to get political capital today?
Yes, you heard him right. He even questioned on the fuel levy securitization, when he said that government is coming up with these big terms, and he has called it actually illegal borrowing because this didn't go through parliament approval. I mean, this is bold. In the central region, Ndindi Nyoro, is actually seen as someone who could be the next Kibaki. I mean, his economic brain, his quiet charisma, and his fearless stand against wasteful spending are drawing admiration. And even not just Mount Kenya, but across the divide, from the different political lines. We've seen even Babu Owino interacting quite well with him.
Being addressed to you, Chair, on the State Department for Foreign Affairs. You clearly see that we are making a budget to fund foreign affairs, State Department for Foreign Affairs. And the other day, you saw in that ministry, the person heading the ministry, Honorable Musalia, coming out clearly to protect the interest of a foreign state instead of protecting the interest of Kenyans.
Well, that is Ndindi Nyoro becoming more fearless and standing against, wasteful spending, especially with the current government that he actually supported, and he has actually insisted that he is a member of parliament and is going to make sure that, all these recommendations that they're trying to come up with that will negate, especially on education, will not go through. But you all know Kenya's politics is always unforgiving, so Ndindi Nyoro is establishing himself very nicely, and is coming up so well in terms of economics, and coming up as someone who has a vision, especially for Kenya, and how best it can, manage its resources. And, we have known quite often that it's corruption that is finishing Kenya. So we are hoping that this is the creation of a very wonderful leader in future. Whether he is grooming himself or whether he is being groomed for greatness, or simply, just standing for principle, one thing is very clear: Ndindi Nyoro is no longer towing the line. He's drawing one, and is making himself to be the next big thing. As he said, free education is not a favor, it's a right, and let the government not dare touch on free education. So anyway, I want you to tell me in the comment section, is this the beginning of Kenya's next economic liberator? We know of Kibaki and how well he tried to manage the economy when he got the opportunity. And we know even currently we are working with the visions of Kibaki. Talk about Vision 2030. Is this the making of another political liberator? And especially in terms of economy. And people feel like, yeah, coming from Mount Kenya and, being an economist, this might be the next Kibaki. You never know. But I want you to tell me in the comment section, what do you think? Anyway, this brings me to the end of this video of, we Kenyans, and really appreciate it. If you found this video impactful, I just want you to take 3 seconds of this video to hit on that subscribe button. And also, hit on that notification bar so that anytime we do a video, you are able to be notified. Anyway, it's Ndindi Nyoro, the next Kibaki. That is what I leave you with. Until next time, see you.